Okay, so now we just need to get this light, this individual LED, attached and mounted where it's going to be on the tail. It's always a challenge to get these little things to focus, guys. Okay, there we go. You can see we got about the right width there. So we're going to use this foam safe, Bob Smith Industries foam safe, low odor. CA. We'll just put it right on the end there. Then we'll just get our kicker out. Just have this ready. We'll just have the kind of hold this in the position we want it. Okay, so that's held in position there. And so you could also sink that into the rudder. But I think for the moment we'll just surface mount it. And we'll see how things go. Probably want a little bit more CA on there for now. So just go a little bit heavy on the glue. And then we'll just flip the plane so that the glue will drip down. And that's going to help us to shape the drip will actually help us to make what's going to act as a lens. And so I'm just kind of tipping it as the CA kind of coats and then changes, hardens. So you kind of have to have a little bit of room to be able to swing your plane back and forth. Okay, and then we'll just give it a little spray kicker. As you can see, it's a little bit larger than it would have been flat. We could cut that in too and make it flush, but in this application I don't think I'm going to go for that. I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so now we'll just set this wire down, just kind of pull it straight out. Okay, so we have to make a channel to get the wire buried into this foam. And so this isn't, you don't have to cut it in, but it'll look a lot nicer if you can and still get it to work. But I'm just noticing that this is barely held on. And that just must be a, I don't know if the foam is just barely holding on. Yeah, it looks like the foam is just barely holding on. So I guess we'll find out with time if that's going to be an issue for us. So I want to kind of be careful about how deep I cut. Just want to make a very small channel. And we'll take maybe a flat screwdriver, just open that up just a little bit. I'm going to grab some tape. Remember, be careful what type of masking tape you're going to use, because the finish on these UMX planes will actually peel off. Even the white foam, there's like a mold release, or what's this? It's like superficial coating that comes off, and it'll make the finish look different. You may not like the way it looks. I'm a little bit concerned about the way that this channel is going to work. Okay, that opened it up nicely. This cable is not the most flexible type. But we'll be testing it here in just a second before we get it totally ran up to the front. So if you have a bit of a problem, we can address it now. So I'm just going to try my best to just kind of tuck that down in there. I'm just using kind of the side of the blade on the screwdriver to kind of squish that down into the crack. You just want to just jam it into the crack, guys, right there. Okay, break out some more CA. And we're not gonna go totally crazy on this, because if we have to undo it at some point, like in 10 minutes. Okay, got that. One little spritz of kicker. Let that set for a second. Obviously everything's held nicely there. Okay, so now we have to test this to see how this is going to work. So for that, I've got the radio DX18 ready. We'll go ahead and get the plane pulled up here, and we got to put in our 2S pack. So we're on the Timber UMX. Throttle cuts on. Safe is off. Safe is the gear channel in my case. So we'll flip this thing over. And I don't use the Velcro, so just go ahead and power this up. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but yeah, that just works so nice. You can see the lights from a very wide area. With those extra bumps that I've put on there. Oh, hey, and there's one other thing I forgot to show you guys. As I was flying, these things were getting jammed into the foam here. And so as a result, there was divots being created. And so I took and cut a corner of this paper towel and actually laid on top of some CA a small guard to protect against that continuing. Worked really nice. You can see how nice those work. Okay, so now rudder movement. See how little we've got movement on that wire? It's extremely minimal, and that's full throws back and forth. Of course, you're talking about hundreds or thousands of cycles. I'm going to get it to focus for you guys. So now what we'll do is we'll simulate our final contact points with just a little bit of tape, and that will simulate where we're going to glue it, so we can make sure that we're not going to glue it too close, so as making the wire want to break in half. And so let's suppose we jump over to here. The other thing is I need to address this rudder when we're done here, because it wants to Evidently that pinch point in the foam was not enough to, that hinge was not enough. Yeah, that should be fine there, guys. So that'll protect the wire nicely. So at this point we could also get our wire sunk in there a little better. Okay, cool. Alright, so we'll pause it and get this reset. Okay, so guys, the next step we're going to have to do will be to, we've established that we have plenty of flex there, but the next step is going to be a little bit challenging. We have to decide whether we're going to try to poke this wire through and then chase it up inside the airplane, or if we're just going to run it along the bottom and then push it through. And honestly, on a plane this size, you could probably do either and get away with it just fine. So my inclination is to melt a channel by which to pass through. But I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm going to avoid, or I'm going to regret doing it that way after I get it all done, for a variety of reasons. Not the least of which is the fact that I could probably cut that in just fine. So oh, I don't like this step, guys. These are the steps I'm always struggle with deciding how to handle. I'm going to take one for the team and we'll try it ourselves this way. I'll try it for you and then you can copy if you like the way it turns out. Yep, that was not so good, because I made a larger hole than I intended. Okay. I haven't done that for a long time. I had to make a bend because this landing gear bumped it. Okay, so now we have a nice channel going through. Might as well make it look intentional now, since I've already screwed it up. Okay, so we have a pass through there now. We're going to call that a vent hole. Definitely not a vent hole, though. That's what we call a screw up, guys. But what we can do is we can stuff that with cotton. It'd be no big deal. Cover it with a little bit of CA. You'll never know it was there, except that you know it's there. Now we'll just poke this wire through. And I would love to say we'll call it a day, but we've got a little bit of work ahead of us still. Now these two I want to keep together for easiness sake. And this stuff likes to get caught on every possible thing, being as it's a solid core instead of a braided end. And so I'm going to actually fold it over like this so that it makes it a bit easier to go through holes. Like this one we have to go through, okay? Just going to slip it in there. Kind of hard to tell if it's making it all the way through or not. Oh, you know what I bet it's happening is there's probably another cell in here. Shoot, I was hoping we could see through. We can't see through. Meaning there's probably a bulkhead in there. So I wonder if we're just hitting a bulkhead. Okay, so we're going to pull that back out. I'm going to take another tool similar to what we used to burn. We're just going to bend the tool. We're not going to get it hot. We're just going to see if it goes all the way in. Oh yeah, there's another bulkhead in there, guys. Okay, so this time we're going to be very careful the way we do this. You could make a little guide if you wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, get it hot, but not as hot. Okay, so that should get us through the bulkhead. Now we just have to find that hole with this wire, which is near impossible. But you know what? We do the impossible every day on this channel. Now I've twisted them up nasty. I've got nasty little bends on the end here now. That should make for more exciting feeding. Okay. Might actually need to just trim off that last little bit now that it's got those nasty edges on it. We'll try it first for extra excitement for you folks at home. Okay, so that worked about as good as I expected it. Just double checking the length of the wire. We got plenty of length here, so if we had to take off some, we'd be fine. Now you can also try getting one through and then pull the second one through with the first, but in my experience on the really small wire, it doesn't really help too much to do that. So I'm just twisting them together, trying to get about the same length as we had on our little stick thing, so I can manipulate it and approximate the same behavior. Try to hit the same hole. I'm going to get this through and we'll come right back, guys. Okay, so as you guys can see here, we've got it passed through that bulkhead now. So now it just becomes a matter of getting it up to the front of the plane so that we can connect the wires to our power supply, power source in this case. And for that we'll probably use forceps to grab the lead. And ironically enough, I only had the video paused for like 30 seconds. I got it on like the second try, which is extremely uncommon. Okay, am I going to be able to reach that thing? Probably not where it is. And I've pulled it out. Okay, we're going to pause it and get it back through. Okay, so I managed to get it fed back through again, guys. And this time I can see it when I look back there. So we'll go ahead and finish the pull with a pair of forceps if we can reach. Oh, we're so close if we can't. Okay, so I can't quite get it yet, but basically the issue I'm having is that it's kind of poking into the foam here, so I just have to try to negotiate it away from the wall and it should be fine then. Oh, there it goes. Now I should be able to push it forward a little bit. There you go. Yeah. That's one thing about these little planes that you would just think, oh yeah, it's not that hard to see in there. It's not that hard to reach down. And they always are a lot harder than you think they're going to be unless you open them up. But I'm always quite reluctant to open these things up. Okay, so you see I've got just that last little bit of slack. Okay, so now it's out in the front now. So let's do the last little bit from back here, so we can control how much slack we're left with. And plus we're not doing it with a tool then, so we have a little bit more feedback tactily. Okay, so we've got those evened up again. And you see this whole hinge here is just broken, guys, which is just ridiculous, but it is what it is. It's not the end of the world either. and we're going to have to redo that. But that's not broken from this project. It must have been broken from something else. Like, it might have had something to do with running into like a new no parking sign. But I'm not 100% sure about that. Okay, so as this moves, then we'll have our first contact point up here. And that will give us a little bit more flexibility so that the sweep goes from like here to here when that rudder articulates, so you won't have a break point right in the middle. And the way we're going to correct this nasty hole here is we're just going to take a little bit of cotton. That one's got some black on it from having cleaned off some ink. We're just going to take a small amount of foam, or excuse me, not foam, but cotton from just a cotton ball. We're just going to stuff this in there. Now, you don't even really have to do anything to set this in here. It would stay in here on its own. But in our case, I'll probably go ahead and use a little bit of CA just to hold it, which will keep it from picking up moisture. If you were flying this indoors or whatever and you were never going to be in the snow, then you wouldn't need to do that. But of course, in my application, it's going to be like immediate that it'll be in snow. Okay, so once you have that where you want it, I'm just tugging on the rudder a little bit to give it some slack. I'm just going to soak this area with, I would say, a good 5 or 6 drips of CA. And it won't even soak all the way into the bottom layers of that. But that'll give it plenty of strength and keep it from wanting to get soaked with water. And we're not going to spray it this time. We're just going to drip like this. And this tube, the CA won't stick to the spray tube for some reason, which is really a nice feature. I'm sure it wasn't by design. I'm sure it was an accident. Happy accident. Okay, so now we're at this point. We'll just take and get a little bit more. I want to get you in focus first, guys. Okay, so we'll just get that little bit there, and we're going to work it again like we did before. We're just going to let that stuff kind of drip down, and that's going to give us a really good unidirectional tail light. And so let's double check where our wire routed. Yeah, see, we're not really applying any pressure back there to any of the areas where the control surfaces would be, including, of course, the flap lever area. Okay, so I'm going to get some stuff picked up, come right back. Okay, guys, so we've got the soldering iron getting hot again. And while that's getting warmed up, we need to investigate our power choices here. And so my first order of business needs to be to re-land power to that LED to verify what I estimate as the best place to tap power. And in my opinion, it would be these two LEDs, but we may not be able to use that voltage level. And so we have two wires here, and most of the black has wiped off of these from when we marked it earlier, which is very disappointing, but not the end of the world really, because you don't have to have it marked. It's just going to save us a step of having to check polarity. So let's just clip it. I believe this is the negative side, and this is the positive, but who knows? We're going to have to test again. And let that be a warning for you guys at home doing this. The polarity will wipe off of there if you're not careful, and I've had that happen a time or two, but usually it survives the pull. Okay, so remember, hot iron plus foam equals mistakes, so be careful when you're doing this. We're just going to get this tip cleaned off here. Okay, so we've got that tinned up nicely now. I'm actually running the wire through some solder. So now, as long as you have a current limiting resistor, it's not super critical. Polarity is not going to make or break the circuit. It's not going to damage the circuit if you're wrong. It just won't turn the light on. So the easiest way to test polarity right now is to go ahead and plug in our test circuit again. So we'll do that here. And then we can actually just pull this out instead of powering the breadboard. And we'll validate my guess. Or invalidate my guess. Okay, so you can see the light coming on. So that tells me that we're good there. Now we just need to plug this back into the breadboard for the next time we need to test. Ensuring we get our polarity right. Okay, so I had my polarity right, which is great. So now what I can do is I can actually, I've glued over these, so I won't be able to tap those without actually cutting into the cable. And you can see back here there's a bunch of different plugs and things about. I'm going to see if I can get a light for you. There's a bunch of different plugs and ports and stuff on this board. And I'm not sure what that big long one in the middle does. And it looks like we got a couple of servo lines that go up to the top. That must be the flap servo there. I know for sure if I can detach that, we could use the power from that. So you see this one here, guys? That must be the one that goes to the flap servo. And I can tell just from following it up into the top of the wing. But it really doesn't matter because it's just, we're going to be pulling power. We're not going to be pulling signal by any means. So, since this isn't going to film well, this particular step, I might just kind of tape this out of the way with our temporary tape from earlier. I'm going to actually put this over the edge so that I don't make a big divot in my foam. And then I'm going to go back far enough so that it's out of the way of the paint finish for the detail on the wings. And that'll get that out of the way while we're working. And I want to unplug this one cable, because we can pull that out, work it, and then plug it back in. Well, except that this little son of a gun is just right here. Yeah, let's see what we got. Oh yeah, we got lots of extra on that. Guys, look at that. Fancy. Looks like in that case we're just getting our power and ground too, so that must be going out to the LED board. Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we can tap into that. So we'll unplug this. And we'll pull that out here where we can work on it better. Alright guys. We'll be right back with another video coming soon.